Acapulco, Mexico. This is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I've got a great first-time guest coming on from near the belly of the beast near Washington, D.C. His name's Eijah, which is sort of his hacker name, and we're going to be talking a lot about sort of hacker-type stuff. And he actually was the senior developer of Grand Theft Auto 5, and he's gone on now to create something called Promether, which is a sort of a blockchain-based private messaging sort of system. I'm not exactly totally sure what it is exactly. That's why I have him on the show. But I was told by Ernie Hancock, past Anarchast guest and future speaker at Acapulco coming up in February, that I should definitely be talking to Eijah. So I listened to certain people, and Ernie happens to be one of them. And I thought, okay, let's have him on and talk to him. So Eijah, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on. First question I have to ask you, though, is, and I know you use this word, how did you become a technological anarchist?
Oh, well, first of all, Jeff, thank you for having me on your show. Well, if you look at the last 2 decades, I mean, it goes back before that, but especially the last decade or two, control has been shifting. And it's not just the wealthy that have that control now, but the majority of the control is in the hands of governments and companies. We see this. We don't need any other examples except the cloud. If we just look at the cloud movement, so the centralization of the storage of all of our information in companies, centralized in companies. If we just look at what's happened in the last 10, 20 years in that respect, we see that we've lost the control. And so as the last couple decades have progressed, I realized that we're not going to rebound from that. Once we give up our information, once we give up our identity, our personal details, we'll never get it back. In fact, the moment we give it up, we lose control of it, and it's no longer ours anymore. It's kind of ironic and disturbing that you give up the most intimate details of your life that defines who you are as an individual, and yet you don't even own that anymore. We're almost like walking shells of our former selves. And so because of that, I realized we needed to do something to counter this. The problem is I'm just one man. And although I have an army of hackers and friends and family that are supporting me, that makes us extremely powerful as a group, we're still no match if we go head to head with governments and companies. It's kind of like 300 years ago when the United States was trying to form a country. And if they went head to head with the British troops, they would have been annihilated. And so they had to come up with a different strategy. They had to invent or reinvent guerrilla warfare. And so it's that approach. If I attack the governments directly, I'll fail. And if I attack them from within, that means that I have to be consumed by the beast and be part of that machine. And that will either destroy me or will result in me not accomplishing my goal. So there has to be another way of achieving our goals. And I came to the conclusion that the only way for us to accomplish that as individuals is to become stronger. You know, sharpen our weapons, acquire more weapons, become more intelligent, band together, become a movement. But we have to be smart about it. And so create powerful, emergent, and very, very good technologies that we can put directly in the hands of everybody, rich and poor and entitled and non-entitled, so that we can have a leg up or an advantage against governments and corporations.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I like to call myself a anarcho-capitalist, even though I sort of think the word anarchist, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, even libertarian, if used properly, are all basically the same word. But I like to use the word anarcho-capitalist because in some contexts, not always. If I'm amongst, if I'm in a bar full of Antifa people, I might not mention I'm an anarcho-capitalist. But I like to use it because I think it is so important. And you brought it up about us becoming more powerful, us becoming more stronger. And what is one of the ways that we can do that? And that is actually having capital. When you have capital, and I know this is something that you mentioned to me before the show, the reason you're able to do some of this at the moment is because you made a lot of money with Rockstar Games and the absolutely massive hit game Grand Theft Auto, which is actually, we should even talk about the anarchistic sort of things in that game. Actually, I want to talk to you about that, but let's stay on this topic for now, and let's get into that a little bit later, because I'm really curious to hear if you put that in there on purpose or not, because it's very anarchic, Grand Theft Auto. But you're right, that we have to become stronger. And there's different ways to do that, and that's physically become stronger, become better with your health, become mentally better, make sure it's working all good, and that's diet and all that kind of stuff. All this stuff sort of ties in together, and then capital at the same time in order to do these sort of things. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with Promether. And I don't know much about it, but let's talk about why you think that's so important, because you were telling me before we got on the show why you think it's important. And I'd never quite thought of it that way, that it really comes down to, in some ways, secure private communication. So tell us about that.
All right. Well, if you look at the foundation of every revolution or every great empire or every great relationship, even like a marriage or just a partnership, it all starts with communication. And I know this is sounding like some sort of Hallmark Channel movie right here, but it's not intended as that. But if communication doesn't exist, then it's very difficult to achieve greatness, either in a relationship or in a business or as a politician or as a anarchist or whatever one's goals are. And in a world where people wish to do us harm, if our communications are not secure, then the enemy can eavesdrop. And if the enemy is eavesdropping on our communications, not only will he or she be able to know what we're planning and know what we're thinking, but the aggregation of all of our thoughts and communications can now be fed into quantum computers and machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligent machines that can programmatically outsmart us and know what we're going to do before we actually come up with the idea ourselves. So there's a lot of reasons why we have to, at a minimum, be able to encrypt our messages, encrypt our phone calls, encrypt our emails, encrypt our texts, however we communicate. But it goes beyond that. Encrypting it and protecting the confidentiality of those communications is just the first step. That's easy. That's super easy. We have symmetric and asymmetric algorithms to do that. Cryptography is focused on that. Done. The next difficult part is we have to make sure that we subvert and evade the government's ability to know we're exchanging encrypted communications. And that's the art, whereas the first step, encrypting it, is the science. So it has to be a combination of both. We have to have a solid scientific background. We have to have the crypto right. And then we have to be sneaky about it. We have to make sure that nobody even knows we're communicating securely. Because if they catch on that we're doing something like, oh my God, secure communications, then they may focus on our web traffic. They may focus on our IP addresses. They may monitor us. They may put a wiretap on us. They may do all these things. They may talk to our friends. They may try to influence our friends, coerce our friends. They may turn one of our friends against us, all because they caught on that we were exchanging secure messages. So it's a combination of both of them. And this is something I spoke at length with Ernest Hancock on his show a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's great. It's a very interesting concept about how important this is. And it's kind of interesting because if you look at Bitcoin today and what's going on with Bitcoin, I find that a lot of the problems tend to be that the techies don't necessarily understand how business works. And so they're creating all this massively great code, but no one's really using it, like the SegWit and even the Lightning Network. Not that I even think those are all that great, but there's so many different facets to doing all these sort of things. And you have people out there doing sort of messaging apps and things like that. But and as you pointed out, it was a great point that, yeah, we already have this technology available to us. But the problem is, in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, most people just don't use it because it's not that easy to use. So you've got that problem as well. Like me personally, I'd love if everything I did was encrypted, even though I don't personally care, because every single thing that I plan to do and everything I'm doing, I do right here on this camera every day. Like there's not much I really need to hide personally, because I've decided to become sort of a public sort of a person. But yeah, if I could just easily encrypt all my stuff, that'd be great. So is this a part of what you're kind of working on, is making it so that people can do that a lot easier?
Well, absolutely. In fact, I've been on a 4.5-year journey now. I resigned from Rockstar 2.5 years ago, at which time I went full-time on Demon Saw, which is now at a sunset development phase. And now I have a new company, Promether. And what I learned throughout 4.5 years is that if the application isn't easy to use, if it's not convenient, nobody will use it. It doesn't matter how good it is under the cover. If the coat of paint is not desirable, or it's too hard to figure out how to push the buttons, nobody's going to use it. And so at a minimum, you have to have the convenience factor and the usability, and the user experience has to be perfect. Now, you can't have just that, and you can't have smoke and mirrors under the cover either, because people will quickly figure out, oh, this is trash, it's pretty, but it's nothing more. So you have to have both. And that was a very powerful and painful lesson I learned with Demon Saw, whereas it was very new technology, it was very cutting edge technology, but it was way too complicated, the interface, especially Demon Saw 1, 2, and 3. Finally, in Demon Saw 4 that I released just a few months ago at DEF CON, we finally got the interface where it's easier. But it's even now, it's too complicated. So Promether is focused all about user interface, user experience, and the core crypto, making sure the code is solid. You have to have all of those, 2 or 3 of the elements. And that is a strong focus with Promether, absolutely. And all the apps that we build on top of the Promether network.
Yeah, totally. It's just the way it is today that people just, maybe it's always been that way. I don't know. I've only been around in this lifetime for about 40 years, but that people just want things to work and be convenient. They don't want to put in a lot of effort to do most things. Like, of course, if they really super care about it, they will. But in general, with most things, and I'll give a personal example of me, how I didn't do something because it wasn't convenient. When someone told me about Bitcoin in 2011 at $3, I didn't buy any. And the reason was it wasn't easy. It was like, oh, you have to open an account at a place in Japan that's a trading card website for Magic the Gathering, wire your money over there, and then figure out how to get your Bitcoin out of there before the whole thing shuts down. And I was like, I'll just wait and see what happens. Now, I kind of regret waiting, obviously, although I might have just lost it all in Mt. Gox. But in general, and I'm sort of like, compared to your average person in the public, I don't mind putting in a little bit of work to do stuff, right? So your average person, if it's not as easy as clicking a button, they're not going to do it. So what is it about Promether that, me personally, I'll just ask you, I've actually was a hacker back in 1982. I was one of a fairly high-level hacker in the Apple II Plus community, hacking, and I forget what the word even was, so when you basically copied games, basically, but there was a word for it. That was like a long time ago, obviously, 92. Yeah, that was like 35 years ago. But my hacker name, by the way, was Bilbo Baggins. I was really into Lord of the Rings. But so I've kind of grown up all on computers. You could have called me a computer nerd for most of my life. That's basically what I was. But even to this day, I don't really use encrypted email. I don't even use PGP because it's not even that easy for me. And then when I try to explain it to someone else who's not even less technically inclined, it's just like, forget about it. So what is it that you're hoping to do here? And I hope it does work, because we definitely could use it to make this stuff a lot easier for people.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things that I'm doing right off the bat that I think is going to change everything. First of all, the way to sum up, if you ever get listeners or viewers, or you get people who ask you why the cloud is so popular, the cloud we talk about being a very, very bad thing. Well, the cloud, if you break it down to its core element, the cloud is a lie of convenience. That's all it is. If you really think about, if the cloud weren't convenient, nobody would use it. And why do people use why do people use Dropbox? Why do they use AWS? Why do they use iCloud? Why do they use any of these cloud-like services? They're easy. They're convenient. They're not even that inexpensive anymore. If you've looked at the price of Dropbox to expand your, go to 1 terabyte, it's very expensive. It's far less expensive to get a VPS through Volta or DigitalOcean. But it started with this lie of convenience. And it grew into this big space that is making billions and billions of dollars. Microsoft Azure made $3 billion last year. Dropbox made $1 billion. AWS made almost 16 billion with a B, and they're approaching 20 billion right now. This is a lucrative business, all because the customer thinks it's easy. Well, here's the truth. As a software developer who's been in this space and a hacker for 20 years, we can make just as convenient software that's decentralized. In fact, we can make more convenient software that's decentralized and isn't prone to the same privacy nightmares as Dropbox and the existing solutions. It's just that software to make takes a little bit more work. We have to put a little bit more time and effort into making it that convenient, and that's hard. That's really, really hard. So fast forward to today, where we've been fed as a society this lie of convenience. We've been sold these apps that are super easy to use. Facebook Messenger, log in with your Facebook account. How cool is that? That is the worst privacy and security thing ever created in the history of humankind. The last thing I want to do is log in with a Facebook account, because if Facebook gets hacked with their 1 billion accounts, there's zero accountability. They have zero legal accountability to reimburse me for damages. They basically are accountable to the US government, and I'm just a number, I'm just a sheep to them. So with what we're doing with Promether is we're looking at the models that work today. We're looking at Google Hangouts. We're looking at SMS apps. We're looking at Facebook Messenger. We're looking at Signal. We're looking at the streamlined user interface. And we're saying we need to adopt a model that's as simple, if not simpler than that. The average user doesn't want to be bogged down with things such as crypto or save or load in config files. They don't want to know about PGP. They just want it to work. And so what we do is we create a layered approach to security. At the very, very first layer, things are super, super easy. You just see a calm water. There's no storms, there's no movement. You don't see anything else but a beautiful, serene landscape with a beautiful beach and a beautiful water line. And then as you go down deeper and deeper, as you optionally choose to go down deeper, you open up more and more options. And you can tweak and you can config and you can define your security levels and your privacy levels even more granular. And that's how you need to approach the problem, because the diehard security enthusiasts are going to want every single option possible. But 99% of the people in the world you will turn off by exposing all those from the moment they download the app. So that's the balance that we achieve. It's really a layered approach to security and customization.
Interesting. So what stage of development is the app at right now?
Well, right now we will be ICOing Promether in the next few months. I haven't released an exact date yet, but it'll be sometime before this summer, sometime probably before DEF CON, which is late July, early August. Right now, development is half done for core development. We have a command line alpha build, but what we're doing is we're taking a new approach to the ICO. If you look at the ICO space right now, there's 1 billion ICOs that are mostly worthless. I mean, I'm just going to throw that out. Most ICOs, they put together a group of 20-year-olds, 10, 20-year-olds together who have this fantastic idea and are truly going to change the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being eager and ambitious at 20 or being young or having a great idea. But they put together a white paper and they don't have 20 years experience or 10 years experience. They don't even have a college degree. So they simply have a dream. And unfortunately, dreams are great, but they're not enough to bring a product to market. And so most of these ICOs promise the world and end up delivering a rock or at best an asteroid. And what we're doing is we're saying before we ICO and before we take anybody's money, we are going to create a enterprise product, a secure messenger that is a proof of concept that runs on the Promether network. And we're going to put it in the App Store. And we're going to put it in Windows and OS X and Linux. And you're going to be able to download it and use it before we ever ask for your money or ask for your confidence and your faith in what we're doing. We're going to release an enterprise product that runs on the network. So when you give us your money and we give you coin or token, you're going to know that A, this will work because it already does, and B, is we're serious and committed. And that, I think, is the level of commitment that devs who are doing an ICO need to start having with the investors that are trusting them. Because right now, you got to admit, it's chaos. I mean, if you look at the Ethereum market for ECR20s and smart contracts, it's ridiculous. It's like, it literally is like, if you want to commit investor fraud, the place you go create an ECR20 token and you promise the world. Not all of them are bad. you know, and keep in mind, I'm a little negative here, but the majority of them will never happen, and investors are going to lose money. And so the worst thing of all, even more bad than investors losing money, is now the SEC thinks they have to get involved. So the fallout to all this is now we regulate more. So the fallout to all this fraud and corruption and these devs that promise the world and underdeliver is now the US government and other governments of the world are going to step in and regulate. And the worst thing that can happen for the future is more regulation. And I'm sure you agree.
I'm not sure it's the worst thing, but it's definitely in the top 5. I would say bigger government would be bad. More central banking, a one world currency would be bad. But yeah, it's right up there. Regulation is absolutely horrible, and I'm definitely not going to get any argument from me in that respect. So the ICO is coming up for Promether, so we'll definitely be following that. I do want to get into the anarchic sort of thing about Grand Theft Auto, but before we do that, is there anything that we haven't talked about with Promether you want to let people know?
Well, I think the most important thing is where they can get information is Promether.com, Promether.com. I am on Demon Saw every day. In fact, a lot of friends and family are on Demon Saw, so if they want to communicate with me directly, they can either email me at Eijah@Promether.com, it's EIJAH@Promether.com, or just log into the public network on Demon Saw. Go download Demon Saw 4 client, demonsaw.com, and you can converse with me there. My name's Eijah. I have the big green check by my name letting you know I'm verified. It's funny doing software verification in a decentralized app, but we'll save that for something that I think is funny over a couple beers sometime in Acapulco. But it is, how do you verify in a decentralized and trustless network? That's a whole nother point of discussion. But that's how they can reach me if they're curious about the project. You know, come take a look. We have a newsletter that goes out. They can follow me on Twitter at End Surveillance is the Promether Twitter. So at End Surveillance, or they can follow my personal account at Demon_Saw. But I'm available to talk with anyone. I'm open. I don't have any closed door policies. If we're going to truly change the world and we're going to make the next generation better off than what we are right now, and we have to have an open door policy, and we can't have a hierarchy in our fight for privacy and for the empowerment of humankind. We all have to be on equal footing.
Great. And as you brought up earlier about how if your enemy, and I don't actually like to use those kind of words. I don't personally have enemies. I just have people that I'd rather not have in my life, like government or things like that. But I don't think of them as enemies. Those are words that people do use. And you pointed out that if your enemy or your person that you're trying to do something in contrast to can read and see everything you're doing, that's a massive, massive disadvantage. So in that way, and I should point out as well that, you know, you're watching Anarchast here, and we have the Anarchapulco conference. I personally, and I don't know anyone who really wants to make plans to go and kill government people or anything like that. So this isn't about like having the privacy so that we can come up with all these plots to like murder government people or anything like that. But if you're actually, you know, you see the government as a problem in the world, and you'd like to see it reduced or absolutely just gone from the world at some point, but they actually can read and see every single thing that you're doing, they have just a massive advantage against you. So in that way, I'm really looking forward to seeing Promether. You know, I've actually been wondering, maybe you can say something about this, Eijah, that I've been surprised how few things have come out that have been really easy to use when it comes to privacy. Like, is that an issue with? Because usually the market's really good at finding things that people want. Is it a thing that people just maybe don't even want it or know that they would want it? Or what's the problem here? Why hasn't anyone created really easy to use privacy applications?
Well, and that's, first of all, that I think is you've asked a lot of great questions, but that, in my opinion, is the most important question you've asked all day. And people have wanted this. People have wanted this. Developers have created similar solutions. But here's the problem with truly privacy-focused applications in a decentralized framework. Like I said before, they're harder to make than centralized solutions. So, but you know, that's just a matter of getting the right programmers on the team. You know, individuals like me and others that are really smart and are willing to dedicate their time. But here's the truth about centralized apps. And I use the cloud as an example because everyone's familiar with the cloud, but there are other examples I can use. Let's take a look at the cloud. Why is the cloud so prevalent over a secure file synchronization or a secure file storage app that anybody can use super easy? Well, here's why. There's 4 groups of people that benefit from centralized apps, especially the cloud. 4 groups. And in this particular order of benefit, the companies. Companies benefit the most because they make billions of dollars every year. And we talked about that with Azure and Dropbox and AWS and stuff like that. Companies make billions of dollars. Number 2, governments benefit the second most. Why? Because PRISM and CISA and backdoors. There's a reason why Signal sends all of our communications through a huge data center that I'm sure is connected to NSA black boxes that retrieves all of the metadata off of all of our encrypted messages and stores it in a data center in Utah. So number 2, governments benefit. Number 3, then hackers benefit. Why? Because if I'm a malicious hacker and I want to steal credit card numbers or steal user IDs or steal something, doesn't it make more sense that I hack one place and get a 50 million payout rather than hack 50 million different places separately? It's way too tempting to have all of that data centralized, so hackers benefit. And then finally, the last group that benefits are the consumers, the individuals that are giving up their data. And we're told the lie of convenience, which, to be honest, there's other ways to get that convenience. So when you break it down and you look at it from those 4 different angles, there's way too much money involved for powerful and wealthy people and powerful and wealthy governments. And like Gordon Gekko said in Wall Street, greed is good. Now, I'm not a greedy person myself, but greed and incentivization moves technology forward. The reason why blockchain is such a big deal right now and people are so interested in it isn't because it's going to set humanity free and remove regulation and centralization. It's because people make money. It's because people put their miners out there and make money. It's because investors make money. It's because exchanges make money. I spoke about this at the Texas Bitcoin conference a few months ago. There's 3 people that love blockchain right now, and that is the miners, the investors, and the exchanges. And they love it because they all make money. Now, that isn't bad. Just because technology can create wealth and can incentivize individuals is not a bad thing, but we have to go beyond that. And the reason why good and convenient and easy to use privacy apps are not available is because there's way too much money to be made by not making those. It's easier to make centralized technologies. It's far more financially lucrative to make centralized apps than it is to make privacy apps. There's not a strong enough market for decentralized, secure, and genuine and honest privacy apps that set us free. And that's the honest truth. And it sounds a little pessimistic, but it doesn't mean that the stuff I'm doing and other privacy activists like Ladar is doing is not important. Quite the contrary. It means that true privacy activists, what you're doing, Jeff, on your show, is even more critical that those individuals continue forward because there's so few of us and so few people are talking about the issue and are creating technologies that will make the next generation safer and more free than we are. And that's the honest truth. Unless we as privacy activists stand up and empower each other and create better tech and better solutions, we will be washed over by the waves of centralization and regulation in governments and corporations, and we may very well drown as a society. And seeing the picture of you there with the beach in the background, it's not very difficult to drown. You can drown in an inch of water. So.
Yeah, actually, my Chihuahua almost drowned today. Lucy, the waves were quite big, and she just, when she sees me out in the ocean, she just runs into the water to save me or something, or just to be with me. Anyway, the waves are really big. She's going. I just got to her in time, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. She's such a sweetheart. Lucy, Ben, Lucy. Oh, she's so tired, she's not even listening. Lucy, Ben. Well, she's exhausted. Yeah, she had a tough day at the beach, but she's okay. So yeah, very interesting on Promether. We'll definitely be watching the developments. I'll be very hoping that this comes to fruition, and I'll have some sort of easy-to-use privacy applications to use in the future. And not just because of what we talked about how it is important for various reasons, but just it is. I think it's just important. Privacy is such a sort of very basic. I think even like the founding fathers of the U.S., as cultish and weird as that is, and as non-libertarian as many of them were, although some of them were a little bit libertarian, I think they even talked about privacy a little bit. So like this is like privacy appears to be a sort of a necessary part of liberty for whatever reason, and I think you understand this more than me. But I've never quite put the two together all that much. But I know it is important. So I just never had, even today. Like I'm a computer nerd, and I don't have much. I talk on Signal. I talk on Telegram. I'm not sure how safe either of those are. Maybe you can even make a comment on that. WhatsApp says it's encrypted. Telegram says it is. Signal says it is. I know some hackers who say the NSA basically has backdoors into all those things. What's your take on that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, here's the truth: is speculation, conspiracy, guessing. We can do all these things and say that Signal or WhatsApp or Telegram do X or Y. But here's the honest truth. First of all, they all use the double ratchet algorithm that Moxie and his team created and licensed and makes millions and millions. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with paying your bills and being financially secure and enjoying life and prospering. But that technology, those applications all go through what we call a walled garden or a closed infrastructure. There's a bunch of servers, hundreds of servers that they own, and Signal messages and Telegram and WhatsApp all go through these servers. They all go through the same set of servers, and they have to go through those servers. If you try to make an app that uses that protocol and goes through your own servers, you get sued or you get a cease and desist. So there is no flexibility. Some of the code is open source, but it's a closed infrastructure. And so from a privacy standpoint, I'm a little weary about trusting technology that is not open source and open infrastructure. I, as the individual, have to be able to host my own server and have all my friends go to my own server or a decentralized network and know that the government hasn't hooked into my network and is collecting the metadata. I guarantee you the NSA is collecting all the Signal and the WhatsApp and the Telegram communications. Now, full end-to-end encryption might be there, but I can tell a lot about what you're saying to your friend by simply stripping the metadata. I can tell the frequency, I can tell the points of origin and arrival, I can correlate it, I can find the time you're awake, I can reverse engineer from a geolocation your locale, I can look at habits, and I can put all that into a machine learning algorithm and be able to predict where you're going to be next. And that's very convenient if I want to do you or somebody else harm, or I want to continue to monitor. So there's a lot you can do by simply stripping out the metadata headers from data and not reading the actual payload. This is how we decrypt ciphers. This is maybe not a great segue, but I'm a big history buff, and I love the History Channel. I'm a big Ancient Aliens fan. It's fun show. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. Who knows? But the last few weeks, they've had this Hunt for the Zodiac Killer show on, and they were talking about how the Zodiac Killer, 50 plus years now, they still haven't deciphered some of his encrypted letters. And the thing is, it doesn't matter. You can still get a lot of information by not having the message decrypted. And so we have to be wary of any technology or company that promises privacy and pretends to protect us, and yet isn't going to give us the ability to protect ourselves. Because at the end of the day, and I always end conversations with this, at the end of the day, only you can save yourself. I cannot save you. I can barely save myself. And so we have to be empowered to be able to save ourselves. If you're waiting for somebody to come back and save you, you're going to be waiting for a long time, and you're going to be waiting in vain.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to take control of your own life and empower yourself. And that's really what anarchists talk about a lot. And that's what you started talking about, individual anarchy and empowering individuals and things like that. And one last note on privacy. I've seen a lot of people out there talk a lot about how they get really angry that like Facebook or Google is watching what sites they go to and then giving them advertisements and stuff like that. I actually don't mind that much. So my biggest issue with privacy, I use Facebook because I want to use Facebook. I'm not being forced to use it, although it is so Google, so like all over the place, it's hard to get around it. But it is still kind of a quasi-private corporation, and you kind of know when you're on there that they are watching what you're doing. You kind of know that, and I don't mind getting advertisements that are tailored to me. I'd rather that than getting, penis enlargement pills. I don't need that. I'm totally fine. But it's not that. It's the governments exist in the world today, and if they have that information, that's a whole different story because they have the ability to track you down, kidnap you, cage you, kill you, all for like made up reasons that they call laws. They can say, oh, you were money laundering. What's money laundering? It's like trying to avoid extortion. It's like, so my biggest issue with privacy is that we live in a world with governments today, and they are so very involved in tracking everything. So definitely, absolutely looking forward to seeing Promether, and we'll definitely be tracking that. And I don't have too much time with you left, but I did want to ask you because you were one of the top coders there at Grand Theft Auto, and you being an anarchist yourself, that game always seemed to me kind of anarchic. And not to say that if there was pure anarchy in the world, it would look just like Grand Theft Auto, but there's something about the game. There's definitely doesn't seem to be much law in that city. I walked up on my kid, this is like 4 years ago when he was like 7 or 8, maybe 9. And he was killing hookers and stealing from drug dealers. And I was like, yeah, that's an interesting game. And he's like, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And
I'm glad you brought that up. It's no coincidence that the underlying theme of Grand Theft Auto is one of, I don't know if I want to say rebellion or anarchy, but it's just, it's one where it's a theme where the individual is encouraged to seek out his or her own truth. I think that would be a good way of describing it. And if your truth involves having sex with hookers in back alleys or shooting at cops, then that's the journey. And that's the beauty of an open world game, and that's the beauty of Grand Theft Auto series. I spent some time in Edinburgh, Scotland, leading up to the launch of Grand Theft Auto 5 on PS3 and Xbox 360. And I met with Leslie Benzies, who was the studio head. And he's no longer with Rockstar, but he was the studio head. I've met Sam Hauser, who is one of the founding two brothers of Rockstar Games. And I spent time with pretty much the upper echelon, the VP, the executive VP level of Rockstar. These are all honest men and women who are trying to make a beautiful, superior product. And, there is no game company like Rockstar. Even though I don't work with them, I left very amicably. I miss them dearly. Not a day goes by that I don't miss working for them. But my mission of privacy has taken me down a different path. And sometimes we have to switch paths because it's the good of our own evolution, and it's the good for us and humanity. But I will confirm that there is an underlying theme of exploration and self-discovery and rebellion and possibly some drips of anarchy here and there as well. These are individuals that believe in freedom. Leslie and the Hausers and, Geronimo and other very smart people that lead that company. These are people that believe in individual liberties and freedoms, and they believe in privacy, and they believe in security. And at the end of the day, every single one of them believes that life is short, and the moments of still quiet that we have with our family and our friends and our loved ones, those are the important moments of life. And those are the moments that we need to reach out to and cherish and enjoy while they're here, because we're only here for a few years. It's literally a blink of an eye in the grand span of the cosmos. And then it's gone. our 20s are gone, our 30s are gone, and as you know, I mean, you explore the world, and I read your bio about, you know, you kind of, I call it a come to Jesus, but it has nothing to do with religion. You know, some of us just wake up one day by whatever experience, and we realize, you know what, I need to take a different path, and here's why. And it's a path of self-exploration. It's a path of self-sacrifice. It's a path of altruism, whatever it may be. It's a spiritual decision for some. But life is too short. Life is too short to just be another cog in the machine. And so what you've done, what I'm doing, what other privacy activists like Ladar from LavaBit are doing, these are important. And now is the most important time for us to make a difference, because there will be no tomorrow or no next year if we don't continue to have the great sacrifices by the bold women and men that continue to advance privacy, freedom, and personal liberty.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Of course, that's part of the reason I do this show. And you know, one of the things that I really believe about life, and I've come to this fairly recently, I didn't used to believe this even a few years ago, is that we're all here for some reason. I don't even know what life is, but we're all here for a reason. And we need to be out there doing whatever that reason is. And if you don't know why you're here, and this is always a big question, why am I here? But you need to find out. And there's, you know, I can't give you the information on how to find out, but it's certainly not sitting in your basement playing video games, as good as those are and fun to do. And of course, you've been involved in those. But just doing that all day, every day is not really, you know, you're not finding out what you're even supposed to be here to do, and then you're not even doing it in the second place. So, you know, and I like to encourage people who watch this show, because I know they're all anarchists, and I want to see there be more and more of us out there, and I want to see more and more of us doing great things. And you're an excellent example of someone who's done some really big things in their life. That's a very big accomplishment, being involved in one of the biggest video games ever created, and now you're gone on to do something that you think's even more important for humanity. And you know, I kind of, as you were talking there, I was kind of thinking, I hope in like, what Grand Theft Auto are they at now? Is it 5 or 6 or? Well,
although I didn't sign a non-disclosure with Rockstar, I'm extremely loyal to Rockstar, and you know, I can't say because they have not said anything publicly about where the series may or may not go in the future. So unfortunately I can't say. But suffice it to say, I think the Grand Theft Auto series has been very profitable for Rockstar. The first year of GTA 5, they made $2 billion with a B. It's sold, I don't know how many, 70, 80 million copies right now. It exists on 5 platforms, from the old 360 PS3 to PS4, Xbox One, and even PC. And so it seems to me, from a logical standpoint, that a successful franchise will likely continue in the future. What I do have to say is I was privileged and honored to work on Red Dead Redemption 2 before I left 2.5 years ago, and that game is slated to come out in the spring of 2018. So I don't know if they've announced an actual date, but everything Rockstar does is beautiful. They pour their sweat and blood and tears into every product. I know, because I was there 5 years, and I worked 60, 70, 80-hour plus weeks, and it's a great company. It's a great group of individuals, and they love what they do. And when that game is released, the fans will be very, very happy, and it will be another beautiful piece of art from the creators of some of the most memorable and most successful franchises in the history of gaming. So I anxiously await when they come out with it, and I wish the entire team at Rockstar my love and my respect and the best.
That's great. And did Rockstar used to be mostly based out of Vancouver, Canada?
They were originally based out of the UK. In fact, okay. they were founded in the UK. In fact, they still have offices in Edinburgh, Scotland, in Leeds, and London. And then they expanded to Vancouver and San Diego and New England and Toronto. And, you know, they have, and New York is their headquarters, of course, Manhattan. But they have satellite offices around the world as well, like, you know, Japan for, you know, Asian titles. But no, they're primarily United Kingdom. The founders, Dan and Sam Hauser, are British citizens, or at least they speak with a British accent. They might actually have become Americans now as well. But no, it's primarily, it's the majority of the core. The largest studio is in Edinburgh. I'll say that, but the development happens distributed in a very decentralized way. Speaking of decentralization, a given title will be worked on by 3-4 studios at once, and it makes for a very creative experience because you have people from all over the world participating, and it's a diverse effort, and you got a lot of creativity from a lot of different angles coming in, and that makes for a better product. And it also makes the product feel real, despite whether you're an American or whether you're Irish or whether you're British or whether you're Japanese. It doesn't matter. It feels like it's something you can relate to. And I think that leads to further the success of the entire franchise as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, the reason I ask is because when I had actually one of the top internet companies in Canada in the 1990s called Stockist.com, and we had a few hundred employees, and we were by far, we were the only internet company in Vancouver, Canada when I started. And we actually changed an entire area of the town. It's now all a tech area because that's where our first office was. And I remember I was in an office building around 2002, if I remember correctly. It might have been a little later. And I was actually just closing down my company because we had just gone through the tech bubble. We missed going public, and no one would finance us anymore, and I was just trying to sell it basically at that time. And I remember seeing Rockstar had an office there, and I said, "What's Rockstar?" And someone told me what it was, and there was just something about it. I went, they seem kind of cool, like cool people, well, whatever it is, like Rockstar, and they've got this game called Grand Theft Auto, and I just looked at the game for a few seconds. I was like, that looks pretty cool. These are pretty cool people. So I kind of always had this sort of I kind of knew those guys back in the old days sort of thing. I didn't really know them, but I just sort of had that feeling about them. But the whole reason I brought all of that up was because, and I actually tried to ask you before, what was the last version of Grand Theft Auto that came out? Was that number 5 or 6? Or?
That was number 5.
Okay, so what I hope for the future is, and hopefully in the near future, is in Grand Theft Auto 6 or 7 or something along those lines, you see a guy, because I saw my kids playing and it's got messaging apps within the thing or whatever. Hopefully you see the guy pull over to the side of the road and he pulls out his Promether app and someone says, "Oh, you got Promether?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't want the government finding out what we're doing." So that's sort of my dream about the future of all this tying together. And of course, when you dream about these things, you actually kind of make them come true. It's all, you create your own reality and all that sort of stuff. I'm into all that kind of stuff. So.
You never know what the future can hold. I have a lot of very close friends at Rockstar, and like I said, I left. It was very amicable. It was sad. I didn't want to leave. They didn't want to let me leave, but I just knew after 5 years. I wanted to explore privacy. I didn't see solutions in the privacy space. I was getting worried. My nephews were just born, and I looked at them innocent as babies that grew into toddlers, and then boys, and I realized maybe my privacy is dead, because people always talk about, is privacy dead? Is it not dead? No, it's dead. It's dead for us, but it's not dead for my 8-year-old nephews, and I think that there for me was the key, and that motivated me to take the big leap of faith and leave the best job I've ever had in Rockstar Games. And like I said, it was financially very lucrative for me to stay there. And it was fun. But sometimes you have to do what's uncomfortable to make others more comfortable. And if we have people who are focused on the future, the 8-year-old nephews and their privacy, maybe they haven't lost what we gave up so easily because of heightened convenience. Maybe they'll have another choice. Now, maybe they'll do the same thing. Maybe they'll choose the same thing, and it will just propagate again. And you'll need another group of heroes, privacy advocates and heroes, to stand up 15 years from now and say, wait, this is bad. Maybe it's just like the end of the Matrix 3, but we still have to try, and we still have to do our best. It's not futile as long as we haven't given up hope. And that's not naive. That's just a reality. And as long as there are freedom fighters left, it's not futile, and we're not without hope. And I think that is why I'm a technological anarchist, and that is why I do what I do. And I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that's at least partially why you do what you do as well, is because you haven't given up hope.
Absolutely not. In fact, I'm very hopeful about the future. It looks very dark, and there's so many reasons that you can be pessimistic about what's going on, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And technology, as you know, is a very double-edged sword. Just as much as they can use it with their NSA and their tracking and their all the things that they do, we can use it for the opposite, all the good things, and make it so that it's very hard for them to do what they need to do. So yeah, this is always. It seems like it's sort of an ongoing battle. You kind of mentioned maybe we'll have to do this all again in 20 years. It seems like it is, and even those, I hate bringing up those founding father cult people, but they said something about that. You just, like every 20 years, like if you want freedom, you have to just focus completely on it. If you take your eyes off of it for a second, you're going to lose it, and then you're going to have to fight to get it back again. And this seems like the recurring theme of human history. But
absolutely, it is. I mean, because you always have the strong wanting to overpower and enslave the weak, and you always have the weak, the Luke Skywalkers of the world. You know, as George Lucas said, he started as Luke Skywalker. He started, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and he wanted to overthrow the Empire. And he did that, and he was successful, and he destroyed the Death Star. And then as the years progressed, once he made the prequels and sold for $4 billion, he looked back and he said, I've become that which I set out to destroy. And it happens. It happens. Time has a way like that. I wanted to give you a simple use case to leave with your viewers. And I'll use the upcoming Anarchapulco as an example. But imagine a privacy app for your phone where a person could arrive at an event like Anarchapulco or DEF CON or Hack Miami or any conference or any business meeting, and you have a privacy app on your phone, and you push a button, there's a QR code that pops up. Your buddy scans that on his phone. Another buddy scans that on his phone, and you scan it there, and then suddenly that group of people are automatically linked for the course of 1, 2, 3 days at that conference, and all of their peer-to-peer connections are totally encrypted. They can have group conversations via chat, they can have group phone calls over VoIP, and everything's encrypted. And then after that conference, the encryption's completely dissolved. Nobody can trace it, there's no logging, there's no centralization. This is the world of privacy that I'm in right now. And this is the type of pirate communication that Ernest and I have talked about. This is happening now. And by DEF CON of this summer, so within 6 months from now, this app will be available on the Android store. You'll be able to download it, you'll be able to use it, and finally, you'll be able to get your communications totally secure and totally free. This is privacy. This is real privacy. Privacy, and this is empowering the individual. And as we know, companies and governments are made up of what? Individuals. Everybody has the right to privacy. Everybody has the right to secure communications. Everybody has the right to be free. But it starts with an idea, and it starts with bold activists and heroes that are willing to take that next step forward. Individuals like you, individuals like me, individuals like the thousands and thousands out there, a lot of which go unmentioned and unknown even, working in their basements late at night, creating things through pseudonyms, the unspoken heroes of privacy. So I would just say to those out there who are weary, to those out there that are tired, to those who believe it's a futile effort to fight for privacy, keep fighting. Don't give up.
I can't think of a better way to end this episode. Eijah, it's been a pleasure to have you on. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. We'll have any links that Eijah gave us about the upcoming Promether ICO in the links down below, and his information on how to contact him. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Thanks, guys.
In a world where Antifa riots in the city streets, cops rage out of control, and the leader of the free world is a fat-ass casino owner, one event stands alone to make anarchy great again.
I actually love humanity. That is why I'm an anarchist.
Backward
universe in the building like we the ceiling. We illin', no matter who find it appealing. I'm here and I got a feeling that we'll be dealing a lot of pain with a penicillin. Get drilled in your head that we are monsters, and yeah, we come from the slums, and for months we've been pumped, but for once I am now comfortable. I want to grow, I want some more success, and I want to know that greatness can't be rushed, can't be lost, so face the bus. Feel free to hate on us, we lace them up. Dudes, we done paid them up. Keep snakes away from us and safe from us, you might wanna be. Remember when clowns used to make fun of me and now they wanna be me? See me and they run at me, I'm gonna be the greatest, yeah I wanna be, but I am not the one to be the fakest. For the sake of being played, I'm here like I never left, set to hell. Nah, cause I can't just fail, so just prepare your ears, it'll get for real. Okay, from here, we will never take the sale, it's grind time. My mind and my thoughts, my highs and my faults, my wins and my loss. When will I fall off? It's a test for me. You are now listening to Veracity. Yeah.
Fuck the media, fuck the banks, fuck drone strikes, fuck tanks, fuck hunger, fuck war, fuck ignoring of the poor, fuck the left, fuck the right, fuck the government. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.